Welcome to the Advice Show, media with the common sense approach. You know, a lot of times when we have these killings of people within our community who are victims, the very first thing that the mainstream media like to do is, after they're dead and gone, go into their background. They look for their criminal records. People like Trayvon Martin want to go through his school records to see if he got suspended, look at pictures that he had. And they do a lot of that to taint the jury in the case. You look at people like Eric Garner. You know, we saw him choked out literally on camera. And what happens with that? They go through his background, trying to say everything they could about him. You look at Alton Sterling. What did they do after this man was murdered on camera? They went through his background saying he did this and he did that, like it's supposed to justify him being murdered that way. You look at Philando Castile. Same thing, trying to go in his background, trying to find if he got things, if he got speeding tickets or whatever. It's always this pattern when it comes to us being victims on national TV, internet, or wherever else. But it's never the other way around. When we look at cases like Dylan Roof, who went to the Charleston church and shot up the 9 people. They didn't go through Dylan Roof's whole history. And when the time they did go through his history, they want to make it very sympathetic. They want to make it like he has a mental problem. He's just, a lone wolf. That's it. Every time it's always humanizing others and demonizing the black person, even they are a victim. But now we have some things that came out within the Huffington Post, and Melanoid Nation is another website that had this information. It's about one of the police officers that died in Dallas, Lauren Aarons. And they pointed out some things about him that no one really knew. I don't know if anyone on the police force knew these things about this man, but as they was going through the background of this police officer to find out about him, outside of him, being a pretty big guy, and, he played semi-pro football. They say he loved to be a police officer. Well, some pictures on his Facebook page had came up, and people noticed a certain tattoo on his finger. And we're going to go ahead and show you that tattoo. Now, the tattoo that you see on his finger is called an Iron Cross. That particular tattoo is linked to white supremacist groups. And when people pointed that out, I was like, wow, really? He actually got that kind of tattoo? Then we go ahead and look at the next picture. He has a Crusader's shield, which a lot of groups who are white nationalists or white supremacists used to have those type of tattoos. Now, someone compiled things from his Facebook page and other things. We look at that picture, and they talk about, as you can see, the tattoo that you saw earlier, and the same thing about the Crusader's shield that was on his arm. Now, they also talk about him, what he likes: Southern Pride, Dixie, Proud. Donald Trump, of course, a Trump supporter, U.S. Infidels, and this other site called Door Kickers. I looked into the U.S. Infidels, and what that's about is talking about Muslims and terrorism and how they going to just do all kind of stuff to Muslims like they would do to them. Some pretty, bad stuff. But there's another picture that was posted as well from the Huffington Post. We'll put that one up. Now, as you see, this is one picture they had compiled as well. It talks about how the police officer was with the LA County Sheriff's Department from 91 to 2002 before he left to Dallas. Now, at the bottom, it talks about the Linwood Vikings was a white supremacist gang in Los Angeles based at the Linwood station of the LA County Sheriff's Department, whose members were deputy sheriffs in the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. The Vikings first rose to prominence in 1990. So it talks about what we've been talking about. White supremacists have infiltrated police departments. Now, here it talks about a federal judge hearing class action litigation against the department described the most well-known of the groups, the Linwood Vikings, as a neo-Nazi white supremacist gang, and found that deputies had engaged in racially motivated hostility. The county paid $9 million in fines and training costs to settle lawsuits in 96. Now, that's all taxpayer dollars. That's all dollars that come from the citizens. And what gets me about this is they keep paying out all this money of taxpayer money, and these guys continue to keep their job, which is very, very wrong. Now, They also say that, neo-Nazis, how they just wanted to infiltrate and put out their hateful views and everything else on the police department. And we've been talking about this, and I keep referring back to the video from the FBI report in 2006 that white supremacists were infiltrating police departments so they can continue doing their lynchings in public and have the public support while they're doing their lynchings. So we not crazy. And this stuff came out. But why is the mainstream media not talking about this? They have more money to research everything, but it doesn't go along with the script. You can't report on this if you're the mainstream media, because if you do report on this, then you're going to be looked at as the black sheep of the mainstream media. But this is wrong. If this man had all his white supremacist tattoos, then you need to look at his arrest. You need to look at his record from LA all the way to Texas and see what was going on with this man. And we need to learn and study all these white supremacist tattoos and see if we see them on one of these cops, if they stop us, to find out who they are. Because this stuff, is kind of like a lot of people say scary, but for us, if we're not surprised, this stuff is just continue to go on. They want those jobs in law enforcement so they can get away with killing black people, maiming black people, sticking guns on them, drugs on them, so they can get locked away 30 and 40 years. That's what they want to do. And what the problem I have with the whole institution is that you got white supremacists in these police departments and you don't eradicate them. You don't get them out of there. Because if someone report about these white supremacists, what happens? You crucify that officer for reporting. And that's wrong. That's what makes the whole situation bad. The fraternal order police don't try to get the white supremacists out. And anybody who violates your blue code of silence, you will crucify them. Shoot, some people may come up missing. You just never know. This stuff is just wrong. It is sick, and this is the stuff we always talking about. Now, don't get mad at me. I'll post a link in the Huffington Post in the description box. You can go look at it and read it yourself. They got everything there. But the mainstream media needs to talk about this, because I promise you, if it was something about a black officer, they'll immediately plaster that mess all over the screen. But they're not going to do that, though, because we already know they got to stick to script. They got to make sure they continue with the propaganda to make sure they keep white people in line and white people the code in this country to keep hating black people and just believing that everything that we say is a lie. We don't be lying. We always telling the truth and we speaking up. And now the wonderful thing about the internet, the wonderful thing that the media can't control the narratives anymore, we can actually show you the truth. Hit me up in the comments, future commentaries, subscribe.